And now, foul demon, face the vengeance of the Moon Knight.
Welcome, Loony listeners, to Roundtable Revengeance 2. I guess we're calling this Return of the Vengeance. My name's Tommy, and I'm here with Rick Gentusa and Knol Tate.
Hello.
3 active Loonies in the group. And we are really excited to just kind of tell you a little bit about ourselves, how we help ITK out with Rick and Khonshu, and just talk a little bit about our love for Moon Knight tonight. So, fellas, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Rick?
I'm good. Just woke up.
What time is it for you?
Good place to be.
9 a.m.?
Oh, yeah. It's totally 9 a.m.
And, Rick, are you in Sydney, Australia?
Yes, the only place in Australia.
Yeah.
I heard Melbourne is better.
What's that?
Tasmania?
What are you even talking about?
I don't know. It's a devil, I think.
And Knol, you're coming to us from Minnesota, correct?
Yep, Minneapolis. Next door to the capital city.
St. Paul.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You know it.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And you are in beautiful Grand Rapids, Michigan, correct?
Yeah, Grand Rapids, Michigan. So just across Lake Michigan from you, and been to Minneapolis once. So pretty cool town. So, gentlemen, why don't we just, I guess, take it and introduce ourselves, and we'll introduce ourselves to the Loonies. So, Knol, why don't you start? You know, who are you? What do we need to know about you?
Well, you've said my name, so that's good. Yeah, I'm just a musician and a music producer and a big Moon Knight fan. What about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Tommy, the man on the streets. And Knol, we got to go back to you and ask you about this new nickname that the ITK community has labeled upon you. But I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm from Metro Detroit, Michigan originally. I actually came into comic collecting really when I was in college, so about 10 years ago. And I've told my Moon Knight story before on ITK, but it really came down to Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and my buddies and I were playing that, and it may have been Marvel Ultimate Alliance too, now that I think of it, but we came upon the Moon Knight character. I think Chad and I actually have a very similar homecoming when it comes into that. And really in the 90s, though, I read my brother's comics, and he was an X-Men collector. He was collecting really when the comics bust happened, so having inherited his comics, I have stacks of #1 issues, #1 Cable, this #1 Magneto issue that has this crazy fold-out cover. And so I think that's really where my love started, with a certain animated series, but also the X-Men animated series from the 90s. Mm-hmm. But then about 2006, when the Houston series came out, I picked up a couple issues, having learned about Moon Knight from some of my buddies, and fell in love. And then I'm a public school teacher. I'm a high school English teacher. And early on in my career, I did not have the funds to collect comics. So it took a few years, but over the last probably 7 years or so, I've become an avid collector of Moon Knight specifically, but just an avid reader of comics. And I love it. It's great. Now, Rick, we are, just listeners while you are with us, we are streaming on Get Vocal right now. And so we do have some webcams set up, and we're able to see each other. And you should see this collection behind Rick in Sydney, Australia. It is unbelievable. But Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do? What brought you into the night?
I'm Rick, the Rickball Special. I've been reading comic books since I was a child. Been collecting them ever since, and I met Ray at a local comic book shop, King's Comics.
Oh, really? King's? And now you're married. How cute.
Not yet, we are.
Oh, damn.
Now, I thought, Noel, do you mean Rick and Ray are married? Is that what you meant?
Yeah. That's how it works in Australia, right?
Yeah, they met each other,
If you meet
traded
at,
some comics.
if
and
you
now
meet at a
you and Ray
comic
are
shop,
married.
you're married. That's how it works here.
Yeah, he's in the other room from Moon Knight right now.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Now, do either of you listen to the Signal of Doom podcast?
Yeah, nah, I don't.
I have. Usually only when Ray's on. Otherwise, it's just David, and I can't stand it.
Yeah. I miss Stu. I miss Stu. Stu's a lot of fun.
No, I love Dave and Stu.
But I know that between Into the Night, Moon Knight podcast, and Signal of Doom, Rick, King's Comics gets a huge spotlight. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your love for that place? I know they've moved locations a couple times in the last few years. What makes King's special? Is it just it's the local store? It's the best store? What do you love about King's?
What I love about King's is the customer service, the quality of the product, and all around great store in general. The way they treat their customers, the way they're able to help you out no matter what. It's just great. It's like top tier.
Do they have a lot of back issues there, Rick?
Oh, you have no idea.
Where is the new King's store in relation to where you live? Is it far away, opposite side of town?
On a good day, yes, but sometimes our transport system is pretty fucking garbage.
Oh, wow.
It's really fragile. One small thing can ruin the whole infrastructure. It's crazy. It takes me 1 hour to get to King's, but at that time I'd be able to catch up on all my reading.
Man, an hour train ride. That is dedication. Because I mean, my comic book store, Tardy's Collector's Corner in Grand Rapids, is if I drive there, it's about a 2.5 minute drive. It's a mile away.
Nice.
And when I was a child, there was a local store. It was in the downtown part of the community that I grew up in. But even then, if I had to drive, it was a 10-15 minute drive. And again, when I was little, I wasn't smart enough to go check out a comic book store. But today, as an adult, it's great because it's right around the corner. And Tardy's is awesome too. I mean, top tier customer service, just as Rick said. It's a small shop. It's owned by Gavin and Deanna, and they have a couple employees that work for them, but they're there almost every day, 6 days a week, and they work so hard. They are traveling to conventions all the time in the Midwest. They always go to Chicago. They always go to San Diego, but a number of conventions in Detroit and Indiana. I think there might be one in Cleveland that's held that they travel to too.
Yeah, there is.
But it's really cool. So they have some collectibles there. Once in a while, they'll get in something special. But really, they have a huge back issue section. But they do pull and hold service. I'm their Moon Knight guy, which is great because they always hook me up. I know that we're broadcasting, and probably no one will listen to this, but for the annual this week, they save not only, of course, the regular cover, but they save the Immortal cover too, which is really cool because it's got
I got that one.
Moon Knight on the front, the
wraparound cover.
Grant, Mr. Knight, Jake Lockley, and then Mark Spector on the back. And I think there is a third cover to this annual too.
There is. There's one more.
The connecting variant.
Yeah, my shop had all three.
But I love it. It's a really cool place. And Knol, man, today you posted on Into the Night some great finds from that 50-cent bin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you found those? And
well, I'm pretty lucky to have. I'm not within walking distance like you are to a shop, which would have been fantastic. But I am maybe 5-minute train ride from one shop. It's a old used bookstore called Midway Books, but they have a huge back issues collection, and they also carry up to the date comics, just pretty much just from Marvel and DC. But that's where I picked up the annual, and they had all 3 editions. Nobody goes there for new comics, so nothing's ever sold out.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really cool. And then today there's another shop that's about a half-hour train sort of bus ride away called Nostalgia Zone, and he pretty much only does back issues, and just a ton of them. I mean, just a ton. Like, I specifically was just hunting for Moon Knight again today, but looked through his quarter bins, and I couldn't believe how much. There was about 100 of the John Byrne Fantastic Four in there for a quarter. And it's like, I should probably just buy all these right now, considering when that movie is announced, they'll go up in price, or he'll probably
kidding.
Pull
and
them
within
from
the MCU too.
Yeah,
so.
pull them from the 50-cent bin or whatever. But no, instead I just bought my Moon Knight stuff. Yeah, and I got the all three of the special editions from the original Sienkiewicz Munch run, where they reprinted them in color, which the coloring is kind of weird on them. But they're cool, and these weren't 50 cents; these were $1. So maybe maybe I overpaid. I don't know.
Stretching the purse strings there.
Yeah, and that like a weird book, the Solo Avengers with Moon Knight and Hawkeye, 2 separate adventures from those two.
That Hawkeye issue.
Well, that's where that meme has come from.
Was amazing. Exactly, right. The vampire or the Dracula meme.
Yeah,
right,
which I had no idea that I
tomb.
opened it up right to that page and I just started laughing. It's like, oh,
yeah.
It's actually a pretty cool issue. He fights the Shroud. You guys know of that character? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really funny. It's a, the typical team up. Like, they fight and then the Shroud's like, I was just testing you. It's so stupid, but I love it.
Peace out.
Yeah, exactly. You want to join my team? No, that's cool. All right, later. Those are my favorite kind of comics where nothing really happens, but there's a good fight. And there's a lot of shops. I grew up by a shop called Uncle Sven's, run by an
strong German population in Minneapolis.
That's Swedish though. Sven's with
I guess Sven. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
brings me back to my Ren and Stimpy days.
Exactly. Brings me to the Swedish Chef, but that's a different thing. That shop is super great. I go there sometimes when I'm over there. That's also pretty close by. There's another big. They used to be kind of a local chain, but now they're just one single shop called The Source. That has. They do a lot of collectibles. They have a lot of figures and statues and stuff. But they also, have all the gambit of. I go there for a lot for new Image books that some of those small shops don't always carry. Mm-hmm. And they've got a good amount of back issues too, but they like kind of eBay price them, I guess. But I don't mean to talk shit. They're great. They're also a great store. They've got a really great staff, but then there's just a ton. One just closed down that a good friend of mine worked at that did a lot of kind of more alternative and indie comics. That was called Big Brain. It was downtown Minneapolis. That place was also fantastic. Like all the weird, like from Fantagraphics, and then weirder and way more. A lot of like mini comics and handmade things and really obscure, cool shit. And it was really kind of sad. But like me and 3 other people in town were probably the only people who bought stuff from there, so they closed down. And there's even more shops I can't even think of. I think there's probably 20 shops in the metro, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm sure maybe our Australian listeners or anybody that maybe is outside the States. I mean, Minneapolis is and St. Paul is a huge urban center.
Yeah.
It's so big they need 2 cities and a river too, right?
The river's the only thing that splits it up.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Sydney, Rick, is massive too. Grand Rapids, we're the 2nd largest city in the state of Michigan, so I think our population, maybe like in the metro area, maybe breaches just over 1 million. So we're really not nearly as big as either of those 2 cities. But
I thought Kalamazoo was bigger than your town.
Yeah, no, we are much larger than Kalamazoo. Maybe during the college year.
Yeah.
But maybe during the college year, because there's Western Michigan University there and Kalamazoo College and a few community schools too.
Ann Arbor is probably bigger than Kalamazoo, though, right? As far as college population.
I think so. Absolutely.
That's where all the future leaders go to school.
It's so proximal to Metro Detroit that it's basically enveloped within Metro Detroit.
I love Michigan. I love your state.
Hey, man, anytime. And I know, Knol, you and I were chatting maybe yesterday or the day before, but, you've traveled and you've toured a little bit in Michigan, too. And
a lot.
Was that with Deleter or maybe another group? Or?
most of the bands I've been in have played at least once somewhere in Michigan, usually Detroit or Detroit area. But yeah, Deleter's been to Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Detroit. Where have we been to Detroit? Yeah, I don't know. I've been to all those places. I've even been to Grand Haven on the lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. They have fountains that do pretty fountain sculptures throughout the summer. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we're very fortunate in West Michigan. I grew up, again in Southeast Michigan, and my wife grew up here in Grand Rapids, and so we moved here. We made that decision many years ago, and I never regretted it. And it's a great place. We're about 30 minutes from the lake, and again, for those of you that aren't familiar with Lake Michigan or the state of Michigan, Lake Michigan is like going to the ocean, but it's all fresh water. It is unparalleled beauty. Unless maybe Rick, you're in Sydney, you've got the Pacific. I'm sure that's absolutely gorgeous. But it's only like a 3-hour train ride to get to the ocean, though, right? With all that Sydney traffic. So, Rick, why don't you let's hear a little bit about that collection. Again, listeners, if you aren't checking out this broadcast feed, we'll see if we can save that and post that sometime. This collection that Rick has is unbelievable. It is. I see Funko Pops. I see action figures. I see a few spotlighted issues maybe behind you. So, Rick, and again, I don't want to put you out of sorts to move your webcam around, but tell us a little bit about this collection. What do you collect? What do you love? And do you have any Moon Knight collections that you want to share?
Well, let's see. I love collecting Spawn figures. I do like collecting Funkos, but only characters I personally like. Street Sharks, horror, giant robots. But yeah, majority, it's all anything I really personally like. And maybe some DC figures here and there. Just a little sprinkled through. A bit of Swamp Thing here, a bit of Mr. Miracle there. But majority, it's all Marvel Legends and Spawn. In the upper room, though, it's basically...
Wait a minute. What?
What?
In the upper room?
Upper room?
Yeah.
Is this something like, do you have one of those secret bookshelves? Is there, you pull a book, you pull one of those Funko Pops and a door opens up and...
Shit, you know my secret. Fuck. But in the other room, it's basically just a ton of like video game stuff from Killer Instinct, Street Fighter, tons of Godzilla figures.
Yeah, you're huge into kaiju, right?
Yes, huge in the kaiju, Japanese television, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you collect any manga?
Oh, don't get me started on that. That's another story for another day.
I've been looking for Domu.
Domu.
For like it's Dark Horse did an English press, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Yeah. And it's really hard to find here for anything less than like volume 1. Actually, I found some on eBay for under $50, but anywhere else they're really expensive. I really want to read that story.
If you want to talk about like hard to get manga, try and find like Guy for the Bio Boosted Armor in English. It's impossible. It's nowhere in Sydney, Australia. It pains me, but I got the Japanese versions, so that's good.
Are there even English versions?
There is, but they're super rare and they're super expensive on eBay.
Bummer.
You were saying, Tommy?
Do you read Japanese? Do you speak any Japanese?
Vaguely.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. is that vaguely as in no, or vaguely as in you know how to say hello?
I know how to say hello, goodbye, some swear words, but majority of the time it's good old Google Translate.
Right.
Yeah. But that's still cool to have those. One of the collections that it's not so much a collection, but some of the books that I picked up over the last couple of years, tying back to a love of mine from childhood, are the Legend of the Zelda manga series.
Ooh. My girlfriend loves those.
I I grew up with Nintendo and Super Nintendo, mostly because of my older brother. But the first video game that I ever beat by myself with no Nintendo Power guides or anything was The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. And so that set my love for adventure video games and kind of RPGs and JRPGs. But I really only just checked out the Zelda comics recently. And so I've fallen in love again with that series, which is great.
Yeah. You know what game I finished playing when I was like a kid? First game ever? Freaking RoboCop vs. Terminator on the Sega Genesis. Oh, good memories. Good memories.
Did you pick up one of those Sega Classics that they just released?
No, but I want to.
Yeah. They pulled out those, the SNES Classic, and I just can't wait until they come out with the Dreamcast Classic, and there will be 3 games that are loaded on there.
Oh,
how long did that last?
Oh God, if they do the Dreamcast Classic, I'll die on the spot. Been wanting that for ages.
It even comes with real CDs or real DVDs. So, excuse me. Before we move on and talk a little bit more about Rick's collection here, because I'd love to hear about those Funko Pops. I want to hear more about this upper room, and Rick too, your love for Spawn as well. But Rick, your nickname in ITK is the Rickball Special, correct?
Yes, it is.
So what is going on there? Where did that one come from?
I don't know.
It all comes from Ray's crazy head.
Yeah,
I tell you.
Ray, Loony listeners, he is I think a great friend of all of ours, and he does some incredible work. And I mean, I know that I thank Ray all the time because it's great to have the Into the Night community to kind of share my love for Moon Knight and share my love for comics. But yeah, Ray comes up with some wacky stuff. If you have not listened to the ITK serial podcast with all of the craziness that's happening there, that's a lot of fun. But so really though, Rick, it's just Rickball Special. This is completely Ray. This had no input from you.
Honestly, one day it was just normal Rick out of nowhere, Rickball Special. I'm like, all right, this will do. I like Colossus. I like the Fastball Special. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense now.
I'm not Russian,
Knol,
but okay.
Knol has recently been donned a new nickname,
Looney Tunes. Ray tells me it just makes sense to him because I do music. That's about it.
Oh, tunes, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like, okay, that's fine. He's just one of those guys who's got penchant for nicknames, I believe. My brother has a nickname for everyone, and they don't make any sense most of the time. One of his friends he calls Quad Beef.
Oh, good old Quad Beef.
Go in 12 different directions.
Yeah, they usually evolve from. He has another friend he calls Arizona or Franken Zeppelin.
Oh, that's a good one.
Franken Zeppelin is an awesome one. I have no idea where it comes from, but it's a
really
pretty cool
they're portmanteaus of whatever happens to be on his mind in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably just some insane mix of whatever is happening in his head. He had told me once he met a guy on tour named Dr. Hot Tub. And he was like, "Whoa, that's an awesome nickname. How'd you get the name Dr. Hot Tub?" And Dr. Hot Tub said, "How do you not get the name Dr. Hot Tub, man? Whatever, fuck you." So everyone was like, "Fair, all right, cool, Dr. Hot Tub."
Yeah, that's cool.
And what about the Man on the Streets? Where's that one come from?
Oh, Man on the Streets. Yeah, well, so Ben Urich or Urich, right? So he's.
This actually has a story.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it has a somewhat legitimate story, but
for this one.
Hold on.
Get the Jiffy Pop out. Yeah. So Ben Urich from the comics and Spider-Man comics, and I'm pretty sure Daredevil comics.
Yep.
But he's a New York reporter, and he was spotlighted in it was Daredevil season 1, wasn't it? On Netflix?
Yeah, spoilers, he died.
Yeah, and that was so sad because I as a human character, as a non-powered character, I think in the time that I've been collecting comics, he's he's been one of my favorite characters, because he's diehard, he'll do what it takes. If you do listen to the Signal of Doom, Knol does not, but if you do listen to it, Dave likes to compare himself to Lois Lane because he loves how great the reporting is, and
she's really tough, which is awesome.
So many different levels. Knowing who Dave is, all respect to him. But when ITK started, I count myself very fortunate that when ITK started, I happened upon them on Facebook, and this was maybe after I think maybe 3 or 4 episodes that they had recorded. And I jumped in and I introduced myself to Ray and Connor, who were the two just hosts at the time. I don't think they had donned themselves as the priests of Khonshu. They raised themselves to that status as ITK got a new following. But I was really excited, to just kind of share my hobby with them. And getting the podcast started, I would throw some things Ray's way, like, hey, here's some Moon Knight news. And this was about the time that Lemire's series was going on. So the 2014 series had ended and Lemire started in about 2016. And I had coming back into comics. It was with that, what started with the Warren Ellis issues that Knol, again, coming back to Deleter and your new album that we'll talk about in a little bit. That's when I really started coming back to comics and collecting Moon Knight again. And so coming back in with the Lemire series, collecting those issues, I was so amped to, again, get back into talking about Moon Knight. And all my college buddies, they all live in other places now. And so I didn't really have anybody locally to talk to. And so I was posting all those clickbait articles of comic book and saying, hey, look at this. Somebody's talking about Moon Knight. We should talk about this. Maybe there's something new happening. Maybe we're going to enter him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I remember, and I think it's in maybe in Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was a reference, wasn't there?
A tiny little reference of we have a man in Cairo. And when I think one of the SHIELD agents is dying after the Hydra attack in New York, I think it is. Man, I went gangbusters on that. And so anyways, yada, yada, yada. I think Ray and Connor just decided, hey, Tommy, he's the man on the streets. He's the one coming up with all the news. But in retrospect, it wasn't really news. It was just, speculation. So that's where I got that nickname. But recently, and I have to really give credit to the Loony community. We're now well over 1,000 members on Facebook, and I know that we have listeners elsewhere. But it's really now the Loony community. It's people outside of Chad and Knol and Rick and Phil and Dustin and Orion, who's joined us recently, and our other friends that have guest hosted and helped out Connor and Ray that are really bringing in the new content. And Rebecca, of course, too, but of really bringing in that new content. And that's what's so exciting about ITK to me is that we're growing, we're kind of spreading that web. We're throwing the crescent darts out and we're able to meet new people, but we're also able to get new perspectives on what's happening. And now we have this Disney Plus series coming around. So it's really exciting.
I'm just here for the dank memes, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
That's ITK, or Moon Knight Core, right? On Facebook.
That's right.
Those guys are nuts. I love it. So why don't we talk a little bit about what else you've been reading? Unless, Rick, do you have any special Moon Knight collections you want to speak to, or just the Spawn?
No, that's about it, really.
I've been on the quest to find all of Volume 1 for under $2 an issue.
Oh.
And I'm only, I think, 6 issues short now.
Nice.
Something like that, yeah. Which a lot I've found for. There's maybe a couple issues I paid more than $2 for, but most of it's been for in the dollar bin or the $2 marks or whatever like that. And I was lucky I started my quest before the show was announced because I have a feeling some of the prices have gone up a little bit lately.
Yep.
But it's pretty cool because of having so many shops in town and so many places with back issue stuff. It's pretty easy. Just if spend an hour in the shop digging, I'm always at least going to find something. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think the only one that I have not found that I know I won't be able to get for under $2 is number 1, obviously. But I have seen it for relatively cheap. But one of these days I'll just pull the trigger and get it for like $10 or something.
Yeah, I think I bought my first. I have several copies of Moon Knight number 1, and I think that
Why don't you mail one over to your buddy Knol?
Hey, no doubt, man, for sure. I will. You know I will. We're not going to share address information on.
I'll send you a $2 bill.
Yeah, but really, I mean, I've seen many copies of Moon Knight number 1 over the last couple years. And I think the copies that I have are probably like maybe 7, maybe 8s, even as high as 8s.
Oh, wow.
But that's just on my amateur eye.
Yeah.
And I think the best graded version that I got was maybe like $18, $18 that I found in Battle Creek, Michigan.
All right.
And I remember this is when I first started coming back to comics. And as I mentioned, kind of going back to that Warren Ellis run in 2014. And when I saw that Moon Knight number 1, in my mind, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this must be worth just as much as Werewolf by Night 32. And I'm getting it for $15. This is incredible. And I remember this feeling of just excitement that went through me. And whatever. The point is I love Moon Knight. I love my collection. And, you know, in retrospect, it's fine.
Yeah,
I don't own any Werewolf by Night 32s. I do have a Werewolf by Night 33 that I got pretty cheap. But recently on the Facebook group, wow, Loonies. Again, if you aren't so active on the Facebook group, you should check out some of the collections that have been posted by our new members and old members alike, but especially some of our new members.
Yeah, I am actually really shocked about how many people have that Werewolf by Night issue. It's crazy.
But multiple copies,
yeah.
Not just one Werewolf by Night 32, multiple copies. There's this one cat on there that I swear has 4 different copies, and he says, "Oh, I don't get them graded." But when you look at them, even through a fuzzy iPhone lens, it's you got something happening there. So, but Knol, again, when it comes to it, I know we'll connect, but I would love nothing else than to get you one of those copies of Moon Knight number 1 if you need it.
My collection will be complete. I actually found, what was it, 25 for $2. And
wow.
That one's harder to find than number 1 is sometimes. So that was pretty cool. That was like the double issue or whatever it is, the giant size issue.
Mm-hmm. So Rick, other than your love of being with ITK and chatting comics and stuff, do you have any Moon Knight prize possessions? Anything that is you could highlight?
Ooh, prize possessions. Just the standard issue ones. Basically, I don't have much Moon Knight physical stuff. I have like the key issues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 4 issues away from completing the Mark Spector run.
Wow.
Obviously, the last one's all the Stephen Platt shit.
Uh-huh. Oh God.
And the problem is, since it's in Australia, they're nowhere to be found.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they're short printed here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wasn't it all?
They're like, for some reason, you could get any other Moon Knight book, but once you hit issue 55, it becomes short printed from there.
You know, at least in Michigan, because I shop in the Grand Rapids area, but I have a lot of family in Detroit proper and Metro Detroit, so I try to get to a shop around there once in a while. Same thing, man. 56 through 60. It's hard to find in the States too. And again, I think part of it's because those covers were Stephen Platt, and I think it's the hardest one to find. It might be like, was it 57 or 58? And I spent something.
Really?
I didn't spend too much, but I spent something on those couple issues to finish that Mark Spector run, and it's incredible, but I know that Ray and Connor, especially in Toowoomba, which I guess Toowoomba is like the boonies, the sticks of Australia. It seems like it's way up in the north or the northwest or something. I know that Ray has mentioned many times, Rick, and echoes that just generally the comic supply in Australia is nothing compared to what, like Knol, you were mentioning all these different stores that have these great back issue sections, that the quarter section, you know, and you may want to go back, Knol, and get that Fantastic Four run.
Oh yeah.
You know, before that movie's announced, but it's really interesting and something that I just, again, coming back to finding ITK and coming into the podcast, love is that groups like this are able to come together and share our love for comics, our passion for comics, and sometimes actually swap and trade those comics too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
I'll give you any of my Mark Spector Moon Knight. You can have any.
Yeah, not a fan.
I'll give you Sleepwalker issue 1 from the 90s. How about that? I got 20. I was investing, and something happened. I'm like, shit.
Sold.
Nothing against Sleepwalker. I like him.
Do you have any issues of Solo? Because, you know, when Solo lives, terror dies.
Yes, I do actually. I love
That's
like
fun.
my C to D list characters a lot. I don't know why.
Ah,
I look at them like I relate.
fair.
So, have you either of you been reading anything new, or have you just kind of been swimming in your collections and at times maybe just finding old series? And again, when I say new, I think maybe new to you. Have you been checking out any new characters? Have you been checking out any new proper series?
Okay, so lately I've been trying to just catch up on all of Scott Snyder's Justice League run. But other than that, I've been going through a ton of old stuff. I've been going through this habit of just buying a bunch of Marvel 2099 stuff. So I'm like 10 issues away from completing Doom 2099.
That's my favorite.
Oh, it's so good.
So cool.
Yeah, I know.
Doctor Doom 2099.
Yeah, Dr. Doom 2099. Where
Wow, I didn't know that there was a series.
Unlike
dude, it's
the rest of
amazing.
the 2099, though, it is Doom, which is really cool.
like the best thing about it, like the first 25 issues, is just basically world building and build up. Once issue 25 hits and Warren Ellis takes over, shit gets wild. Like
It's
he becomes
amazing.
the United States. The Punisher becomes the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a really cool series. It's cooler than Spider-Man 2099.
I know, and I like Spider-Man 2099.
Me
and
too.
I see, like, this is better.
It's a lot better.
Have both of you heard about the new Marvel announcement of upcoming 2099 series?
Yes.
Yes.
Anything there interest you, excites you?
As long as they bring back Doom 2099, I'm good. If they could do a one-shot involving Midnight 2099 would be great.
Yeah. Ray and I were discussing that the other day. He was like, what if it's Spectre's daughter? And I said, well, it would have to be his granddaughter, if anything.
Even
great-granddaughter, probably.
Oh, I got one. I got an idea.
Go for
Wouldn't it be some shit if it's what was it, Rahul Bushman's daughter? Or ancestor?
Oh, yeah. That would be cool.
That becomes the Avatar?
Yeah.
And Night? That would be pretty cool. I think they might need to throw out a little bit of the Bemis run. Maybe not throw out. Maybe just as writers find a good way to blend that in. If they, because does Marvel 29 play off of the idea that it's still the 616 universe, but it's just
originally it was supposed to be. I think now they have dedicated it as another. Yeah, it's a different universe now.
Yeah, but Rick, that would be super cool, you know. But just kind of playing into the possible conflicts that come about, because knowing Moon Knight and knowing that there is, especially now with this Moon Knight annual that came out this week, the possibility that maybe there is some legitimacy to the mythos of the Egyptian pantheon, the mythos behind Khonshu, this idea that maybe there are avatars of Khonshu or avatars of vengeance throughout history, which for me, I really love that. I mean, I love that Mark Spector faces trials everywhere he goes. I love that he doesn't ever really know if reality is real. But at the same time, I also love that idea that maybe there is something beyond just what's happening on the Earth 616, and there's something spiritual, or there's something, because this isn't, I don't know if you would call this not celestial, but I don't know, something other than Earth, or something bigger than what's happening with the heroes on Earth. But I don't know. I really love the idea that there's something bigger that could be powering Moon Knight and making him who he is. And I think to a degree that's coming out in the new Conan series that was announced just yesterday or today. Did you guys hear about that with the 4-issue limited run?
Yeah.
This morning. Woke up, look on my phone. I'm like, what the fuck?
I didn't look too much into the details, but the first thing I thought was, how are they going to retcon this out of existence when they lose the Conan license again?
Oh, I thought that it was understood that in the United States, at least, that their license to Conan and characters bundled with him, was somewhat permanent, like in the sense that, like, for the foreseeable future, they have that license. But I think I heard something too that maybe in Europe there is a difference, and so maybe they can't publish the Conan character in Europe because it's open sourced or something. But
then why would they have those? That's weird. I don't know. Maybe they'll lose it again though. They're Marvel.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be because of that Detective Conan manga and anime. Could be that.
What's that?
It's just a kid detective, but I think it could be similar names and stuff.
And Rick, I don't know if you watch, but Conan O'Brien, he's a comedian and a late night host. Yeah, because last year or 2 years ago, he took a trip to Japan where there's this Conan land.
Oh yeah,
it's an entire city that's themed after this Japanese manga character or something like that.
One.
And yeah,
that's the one.
But I think they made Conan mayor of the city for a day or something like that. Conan O'Brien, that is.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, but this series with Conan, it sounds pretty weird.
What's it called again? The War of Serpents?
It's called Conan's Serpent War.
Serpent War.
And so the gist is that the god Set, which the serpent god Set, which did make a comeback.
This is not going to be like fucking Atlantis Attacks, is it?
Well, what was it? Atlantis Attacks did spread over into a few different issues, didn't it? Like I think there was one or
every
two
annual that year, but it had to do with Set, the snake god.
But what didn't they cross over into Mark Spector Moon Knight for an issue or two?
They did, yeah. It was every issue an annual that year or whatever. Oh, it's terrible.
All I remember was that badass What If issue.
Which one?
The one where What If Atlantis Attack won? And everyone just dies. It's great.
Isn't that every What If though?
Good point.
Yeah. Okay. Still sounds cool.
We got the Disney Plus series coming too, so maybe that'll all be themed after Set as well.
What if they do? What if Fox never bought the Marvel properties? What if Sony never bought the Marvel properties?
What if
that would be amazing?
But the bringing Set into this series here, Set was spoken about in History of the Marvel Universe #1 that came out about a month and a half ago, and I think there may have been another reference in the second issue as well. So, and of course, that could just be Marvel execs trying to introduce these characters that may be new readers or individuals that are just coming into comics, and I would count myself included, that maybe just need to get a brush up on who the character is so they can understand the new events that are happening.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but
don't you still think it's a little weird that like every time Marvel now gets the rights back or gets a thing to a character, it's wrapped in so heavily into continuity all of a sudden. Like I collected tons of Marvel Conan comics when I was a kid. I'm a bit older than you guys, so they were on the shelves all the time along with everything else, and I just grabbed them because it was great art, But there was never. It wasn't like Commandi or anything like that, where they quickly wrapped him into the DC universe. It was Conan was a separate tale, And now Marvel has every time. Like, what was the character they bought from Spawn?
Angela,
right? They're just like, nope, put her in the fucking book. Now she's fucking Marvel. It's like,
see, now I'm going to wait until Marvel regains the Godzilla rights, and they'll just shove them in.
Yeah.
They'll be back fighting the
I'm
Avengers
surprised
again.
there hasn't been a Star Wars crossover yet.
I know that. I'm surprised.
I think the theories are out there though that that Marvel Cinematic Universe takes place in the same universe as the Star Wars continuity. Rick, was it you the other day on Facebook posted the ending to Godzilla King of the Monsters?
Yes.
Yeah, man, I watched that because I didn't go see the movie. I've got 2 kids. I got another one on the way, but maybe it comes on HBO. Yeah, thanks. It's great. We found out yesterday it's going to be a girl. I have 2 boys, so I'm pretty excited about that. But Rick, I have to say, I took a couple minutes to watch that ending, and it's even out of context. Even if you only have a basic understanding of kaiju and who Godzilla is, it is pretty cool. It's a good last 2 minutes to that movie. You know?
Dude. When I saw that in the cinema at the world premiere, when that shit happened, I'm like, fuck yeah.
Really, the world premiere, huh?
Yeah, I won tickets to the world premiere.
You just bought tickets?
Won them. I won the tickets.
Come on, story.
Oh, it was just a competition, like, who's your favorite kaiju or why? And everyone picks, like, the obvious Mecha Godzilla. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick the one no one knows about, Gamera, the flying turtle. And I won.
Wait, isn't that the hero in the It universe?
Oh, yes. Him too, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Actually, wait. You know what would be amazing? If Marvel bought the Transformers rights again.
Right. IDW is still printing those, right? They still have.
Yeah, it's IDW.
They have the full rights because I know they're doing the reprints of them, but they have to take out any of the Marvel like issues or mentions. There's even one where they go to one of the writers wrote himself in as a Marvel comic writer.
Yep.
And they had to like black out like an image that said Marvel on the wall or something in the reprints.
Yeah, they had to black that out. They had to remove the issue that involves Spider-Man.
Right.
Oh.
That's so funny. That's what Spider-Man's going to be like back in Sony.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think that's going to work out. It has to. I mean, both companies.
Oh yeah, I don't even want to fucking talk about it. Actually,
Morbius, though. Be the greatest cinematic movie of all time.
With Venom?
It'll be the superhero movies.
That's funny.
So last week, anybody recognizing that you guys might be reading some older stuff too, and Noel, I know you found some goodies in those quarter bins, but did anybody happen to read Punisher 15 last week or the annual this week? And any thoughts on either of those? You know, we saw Moon Knight engaging with an ensemble last week with Punisher. We saw Moon Knight in a way engaging with a group of heroes this week in kind of a Avengers, everybody pop out of the portals and kick the trash out of Kang this week. But did either of you read those issues?
I read Punisher. Punisher was pretty good. But I haven't read the Moon Knight one yet. And it hurts me.
The annual?
Yeah, I haven't read the annual because I love Colin Bunn a lot. Because he writes some really good stuff. Love his mate.
And ITK listeners, Into the Night listeners, if you are here with us, just a reminder too that a couple weeks ago, some of the ITK Roundtable Revengeance hosts did interview Colin Bunn. It's a great about 20, 25-minute interview. Colin Bunn, really generous to share his time, but it's a solid interview. I know Chad's on there. And Colin Bunn also formerly on a previous Moon Knight series of that Moon Knight 2014 volume after Warren Ellis left.
His issues are underrated, I think.
Oh, yeah,
they're really great.
I haven't read enough of him, I think, especially having listened to that. And
he has a series for oh shit, what's the name of that series? Is that what's the company?
Aftershock, I think.
That's right. That's the one. Yeah. I've heard that's fantastic. He writes really cool, like sword and sorcery stuff and horror stuff and all kinds of stuff. He's fantastic.
Magneto stuff is phenomenal.
I haven't read it.
Oh,
And he was on Monsters Unleashed too. So, again, back to that the sorcery, but also a little bit of kaiju there as well, if that ever comes back. But
that was a great miniseries.
It was.
It was really fun.
So,
what have you been reading lately, Tommy?
Yeah, so I if I can, I'll speak to what I read over the summer. So again, as a public school teacher, I'd move my webcam to see it, but it's just built into my computer. I've got a box of about 60 student journals to read this weekend, and I have 30 more that I need to read by my 7th period on Monday that I'm going to read during my lunch on Monday because I know I'm not going to get to them this weekend. But so during the school year, I'm pretty much reading students' writing, and whenever I can, when it comes to Moon Knight, I'll always pick that up and I will read that as soon as I buy it from Tardy's. And but I try to get all my reading in during the summer, and so I'm going to be a dork and a teacher and do some quick book talks. And if you happened to be tuning in with us on Get Vocal, I'll show you as well. But over the summer, I found my love again for the Witcher series.
Oh, cool.
And I've only played The Witcher 3. I picked it up a few years ago, and this summer I had some time, so I decided to replay it. Actually, I don't think I ever finished it. But I had never checked out the series. So I've read the first 2 books. This is the first, but the Last Wish. Where's my camera? By Andrzej Sapkowski. He's Poland's go-to author. He's won a number of national awards, but also international awards. He's recognized as Poland's great writer or fantasy writer, at least of the 20th and early 21st century. But so I've been reading The Witcher. I read through all of Jeff Lemire's Descender. Actually starting at my barbershop. They had the first 2 books.
Oh, cool.
My barbershop has just a really cool collection of graphic novels and trades. And so that's where I picked that up for the first time. And I love Jeff Lemire. My love for him started with Moon Knight in 2016. But after reading through all of that, Ascender, the follow-up series that takes place about a decade after Descender ends, it's issue 5, I think, is the most recent issue.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't that just start again a few months ago?
Yeah, and it's just as good so far.
That art is incredible. Who's the artist on that?
Dustin Nguyen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he's either American or Canadian, but I'm pretty sure that's a Vietnamese last name. So, but I think he's American or Canadian. And really, as I'm going through just a ton of Boom series, like Ronin Island, and I've been reading probably more Image series. This is Trees, 3 Fates. It's a new Warren Ellis series that just released. But I've really just going through Oblivion Song by Robert Kirkman. Isola is in its, I think, 2nd year now. It's a really interesting series. Just the art in that is incredible. But I think my read of the summer, other than I read through all of Sandman again. I hadn't read Sandman since I was in middle school and in high school.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine collected the issues. And later on, he got all the trades and he'd throw those my way. So I hadn't read it in probably almost 20 years and 15, 20 years. And so I reread that this summer, loved it. I still have to get to Overture. I haven't read that yet. I think that was released maybe a year ago.
Yeah, I haven't read that yet.
A year and a half ago. But I think my read of the summer is Monstrous. It's an Image series. I just picked up the trades. This is volume 1. There's 3 volumes out right now, and I think they're up to issue 30 or 42 or something like that. It's another Image series. Marjorie Liu is the writer, and Sana Takeda is the artist. And Sana Takeda, I think, has won multiple awards now for her covers. But also her art within the books, and it's so cool. It blends kind of a steampunk world with
Lovecraft
magic. Yeah, some Lovecraftian kind of Cthulhu mythos in there too. it's just one of those series that it's got a great writer, it's got a great artist, it's consistent. They're a team, and you know how Image works. I mean, if you take a look at Image's executive team, they're comic heroes that I think deep down want to support creators, and there's something special about Image. And I mentioned this on ITK before, but I love Marvel. You know, I collect a couple characters from DC, if you know what I mean. But when it comes to like new content, I'm going after Image. They just have the cool stuff. And Gideon Falls, you know, I mean, another Mirror series. So I've really had kind of an eclectic business. And again, as I mentioned earlier too, I've just been kind of getting back into Zelda manga, which I really like because I know that my oldest son, he's 5 years old, and so he's starting to read. And so maybe in a year or two, he might be able to make sense of those Zelda comics. And I know that he's going to be able to go on to those safely. Because even with Moon Knight, he knows my love for Moon Knight. He plays with my action figures all the time. Like, here's this guy.
Nice.
But I want to introduce my love for comics to him in a way too that's, I guess, respectful of his age. And sometimes it's like, hey, Dad, can we read a Moon Knight comic? And I say, maybe, you know. So I've really been fortunate that I had a lot of time over my summer, just kind of being a dad and not working full time for about 2 months. Oh, and another thing too, my teaching buddy, Jason, who is actually has joined our Into the Night fantasy comic league, where we choose 4 characters and it's like fantasy football. He found a copy of Neil Gaiman's Eternals.
Oh, wow.
Which
that's pretty cool.
It's not good, but it's still Neil Gaiman. And, you know, with the Eternals announcement and that movie coming out, and it's got a huge cast, you know, Kit Harington as Black Knight. This has been fun to read. And so I'm only about maybe 3 issues in.
It's a good introduction, I think. It's kind of a rehash.
Yeah, because, you know, when you think back to, like, I mean, Kirby, I didn't grow up with Kirby stuff. I only came into it when I came back into comics, and I appreciate it and I respect it and I love it. But, you know,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. And so Neil Gaiman, again, who I absolutely adore, again, coming back to Sandman as well. It is, as Knol said, it's a good introduction. If you're looking for, hey, what's this movie all about? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they release some True Believers issues.
Yeah.
Some of Kirby's stuff with the Eternals, but maybe even blend in a couple preview pages of Gaiman stuff as well.
Yeah. And it's got the John Romita Jr. art too, which is a little more accessible for people, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, what is with that hand if they look at a Kirby comic? Which I love. I'm not giving them shit. Those are the coolest hands.
Wish my hands
ever
were that
drawn.
Cool.
So, Rick, how about you? We are coming up to about almost an hour, but Rick, have you been reading anything new other than that Spawn stuff you got?
Anything new apart from Justice League, Deathstroke, the Bat Thing, weird guy. I don't know his name. Can't say it out loud.
Darkhawk.
Oh
yeah, Darkhawk. Oh, Darkhawk. Yeah. Good old Dark mate. Other than that, nah. Just been catching up on all the stuff, saving up for Japan, and manga reading. Tons of manga reading. Currently, just been rereading the Gaiba stuff in Japanese, and old school Yu-Gi-Oh, My Hero Academia, and Dr. Stone.
Cool.
Yes.
I have a number of my students this year, my freshman students, are super into manga, and there's this one character or this one series, like something like Dr. Bizarre or something like that.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
Yeah, JoJo Bizarre's Adventure. I think like on Hulu in the States you can watch the series or something, but one of my students just happened to mention that to me in our first couple of weeks. He knows about my love for comics. And so he's telling me, oh, you got to check this out if you have Hulu. I'm like, oh man, I don't have it, but it happened to be New Comic Book Day. So I stopped by my store, Tardy's, and right there in the kids section,
Was JoJo.
Right when you walk in, there's JoJo. And so I had to take pictures and show my student the next day. And he was really geeked out about that. And it was heartwarming to think that, hey, you know what? Kids these days, they like comics too. They like manga. They find value in that, which I think is really exciting.
It will never change. People will always love comics. There's just not just how many ebbs and flows, you know. But you know, when I was a kid, comics were huge, and then they died off around the time. You know, my generation kind of died off them when your generation got into them, like the 90s. And like with me, I looked at a lot of those 90s comics, and I was like, fuck this. But then a whole new group of people love that stuff. There's always my drummer's little kid, because of Into the Spider-Verse. He's 4, I think. They let him see the movie, and he's obsessed with Spider-Man now. He loves Peter and Miles and Gwen, all 3 of them. He freaks out. A friend of mine brought me a pop-up book, you know, with like the things that pop up for like little kids, from that had all art from Ditko and from Ramita Senior, and it had all these little fold-outs that had like origins for the different villains and all this stuff. And it was like, you know, they used original art for it. It's a really old book, and I gave it to him, and he fucking loved it. He was like, "This is the greatest." The kid's always got a Spider-Man shirt on. He's going to be a huge comic fan. I know it.
Yeah, and it's great that Spider-Man has such long-lasting appreciation. I think because like my son Remy too. You ask him who's his favorite hero, he'll say Spider-Man. You know, we unfortunately bought him a Spider-Man costume for Halloween. I was hoping we can make one for him, but then we're gonna dress our 2-year-old up as the spider, the Osborn spider that bites him, you know, and just that's their little entourage. He loves Spider-Man, and so cool. You know, into the Spider-Verse, what a fantastic film! You know, I think that some of the scenes with Kingpin, we may have skipped over those, because it's kind of guns and stuff, but it's like, wow, Sony can do something right with Spider-Man. You know, that was really great. I thought they used Gwen well too, you know, so I think you're right, Knol, that no matter what, even though people, maybe even people like us, complain about the comics industry, or they're not treating creators well enough, or they're ruining this character, or you know, take the whole Warner Brothers DC, like DC Online, or not DC Online, what was it, a DC streaming service, whatever it is, it's kind of been
whatever Universe.
I've heard DC. I've heard nothing but bad things about it, except Titans I hear is actually okay, but
I heard Doom Patrol is actually amazing.
And Doom Patrol too, that's right. But can they carry that entire service?
Nope.
I think you're right though, that, you know, it ebbs and flows, and people will find a love for it because it's stories, you know, it's stories that people can relate to. It's stories that
I think the only thing to take seriously about it is the fact that it like exists, you know. It's like, and it always will. And like, you're right, it's like the creators are the ones that need to be like supported the most, because I mean, it's always on the edge of dying, but the same way music is always, at least from where my point of view of music, is always dying. You know what I mean? It's just barely holding on, but people will always create. And whenever people bitch about like, oh, they changed, you know, Moon Knight or like Spider-Man or whatever it is, you know, it's just like you're being really petty about something that doesn't belong to you. And if you're really angry about it, go make your own damn comic book, you know, do it yourself. And that's what's that's what's going to keep it alive, is if people do it themselves. If you're mad that, you know, Spider-Man is a social justice warrior now or something, like he hasn't always been, go make your own little cyber fucking frog or whatever. Like,
that shit.
Yeah. But, you know, in a way, it's like, okay, great. Go make your own Nazi comic book. No one's going to buy it, but whatever, you know.
Yeah. And created something.
Yeah. Do it yourself. And that's kind of always the best thing about art generally, but in comics in particular. That's what you're saying with like Image is so great. Image basically is that, but it's just, you know, they started as a loose kind of co-op of creators, you know, and that's kind of what they still are, you know. Like, I mean, they still, you know, pick, like, it's not like I could write a comic and send it to them and be like, print it. but there's a chance they would pick it up,
Right.
you know, because they can take chances on that stuff, and it's really cool.
Right. And they're not necessarily confined to a certain style, especially when it comes to the art. You know, when
the smartest thing they ever did was get rid of their shared universe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rick. I know you love Spawn.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. I like Spawn. The other image characters, though, that are not Wildstorm related.
So, Knol, and guys, too, I don't want to keep you. I know that we're a little bit over what we originally spoke about.
It's fine.
You guys are okay?
We are chilling.
Knol, you brought up I think an interesting comment there that, you know, for critics and individuals that are complaining, or, you know, maybe even comic skaters that are complaining about the changes in the universe. Hey, you go and do this. You go and create your own little version. You see where that takes you. And I think I trust that you meant that as a legitimate challenge, that no, you should go do that, even if you're complaining, because it's going to create something new. And as you mentioned, that's how we make good art. It's we change the paradigm. We shift into something new. And no, I know that just getting to know you over the last year or so through ITK, not only are you a musician, you know, presently now with the leader, and maybe you have some other musical projects in the works. You have an Instagram where you post some of your drawings, and if you feel welcome to share that name or the Instagram tag, you know, go for it. But I'd love to hear about your creative direction. I think not only for Deleter, but also especially with like this Instagram account that you have, because you have been taking some inspiration from covers from old comics and kind of recreating them and making them into something new with your own characters. And I would really love to hear about that if you're willing to share.
It's just Tate_drawings Instagram. When I was a little kid, the first job I ever wanted to have was to be a political cartoonist, because of reading things like Doonesbury and you know, the like New Yorker magazine and things.
Yeah,
I'm really stuck.
A buddy of mine won
really
that contest once too. By the way.
Oh wow, cool.
Here's the cartoon, and you decide what the cap.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's you know, when I was a kid, I used to draw. You know, caricatures of Reagan and Bush and stuff, and making fun of all that. And that was like the first thing I wanted to do. And then music kind of took over for whatever. And I was involved in the street art and graffiti scene when I was a kid for a while too.
Oh, for real?
So I got really into that kind of stuff.
And again, is this Minneapolis? Did you?
Yeah. I grew up here, and so, you know, the like visual art is always kind of ebbed and flowed, and then I got really into abstract painting with acrylics for a while. But my first love was cartooning, and just a couple of years ago, I just started kind of trying to get back into that swing, and I thought I'd share my progress on Instagram just by doing at least a drawing a day, or sometimes I do a bunch a day and then save them up and release them. And I have a couple friends who are comic book creators, and one of them was like, why don't you make a comic? And I was like, I don't have a story to tell, but I thought I'd at least create kind of some different kind of characters and cartoony characters mixed in with the more kind of serious art, and start doing that. And it's all kind of, I had a group of characters for a while that were kind of like a spy versus spy kind of thing. But didn't really, would just tell kind of one panel stories with them. You can, if you look back on the Instagram way back, you'll find those. And so I've just been coming up with this new small little kind of cast of cartoon characters, kind of a team. And then one day maybe I'll have a story. I don't know. But in the meantime, just figuring out how to put it. Like you said, I was just finding some classic comic book covers I really like, and then recreating those covers with these funny little characters that I've made up. One of them, it's just a little girl. And she's got huge hands that look like, I call her the knife, because they look like giant hands. And so I thought she goes really well kind of with Wolverine. I did one of the X-Men covers where Wolverine's running right at the camera and Rogue's in the back. And just things like that.
You just posted that yesterday, I think, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's pretty cool. She's got a little ponytail. It's kind of waving in the wind. There's some motion there. Her right leg's up as she's running, and the blade. Her fingers are 2.5 feet long, and she's in this attack mode. So it looks really cool.
Yeah. So I don't think I could ever draw like Alex Maleev or something or Sienkiewicz, but I can cartoon. So like,
never say never, man.
Well,
never.
True. And I don't even know if I want to try. It's a lot of work. But there's people like I just watched a video earlier today. There's people going over the Jamie Hewlett art book. Have you guys seen that? You know who Jamie Hewlett is, right?
I know who Jamie Hewlett is.
Yeah, he did Tank Girl back in the day.
And Gorillas.
Yeah, well, now he's in Gorillas. Yeah, with Damon Albarn.
Did he really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's an amazing artist though, and his stuff is really cartoony. But it's like I don't know how he does it because there's something so detailed about how simple his stuff is. So he's kind of an influence.
But it has that look too, Knol, that you were mentioning. You were kind of in that graffiti scene too, and I see a little bit of that in your what you have on your Instagram page too.
Well, it really relates,
of jagged lines at times. And,
graffiti and like basic drawing, cartooning are really related in the fact that it's just shapes that you're working off of, basic geometric shapes. And then you expand those shapes out to become recognizable. So whether it's a character, whether it's letters or whatever it is, they're really related. So that's probably why I got into graffiti when I did too. It's like, this shit's easy. But it's really hard because it's really hard to do it well. And that's a whole different tool set and stuff too.
Right. So what is the medium that you use here? What are you using to draw these images?
Just ink.
And again, just to remind listeners too, if you want to check these out on Instagram, it's Tate's TATE _drawings.
Yeah, I just used ink, pen, and brush, just black and white because color is hard.
Are you scanning these images because they're super clear and super crisp? But how are you capturing the digital image?
Oh, just draw it. Taking a photo with the thing that I'm talking into right now.
Yeah, but really, it really is incredible, listener. So if you check out some of Knol's work here at again Tate _drawings, I don't know, it's really impressive. Again, when you shared Knol the single with some of us Loonies. If I can recall, I've got my iTunes up here. It was it Box? That was the single you shared with us.
Yeah.
And we'll speak about the album here too. But when you shared Box with us, the single off of Deleter's new album here, The Othervoid, one of the images that you shared on September 3rd. I mean, wow. It's just, I love it. It's so cool. It doesn't seem like you just drew it and then snapped a little photo of it. And I don't know, there's something wholly professional about it. And I originally went to school for art education to be an art teacher.
Oh, wow.
But that's a story for another time.
One of my best friends did that and is that. But he lives in the city, but he has to drive like an hour out into the country to be like the one art teacher in the whole like fucking county, wherever it is, to do it. So
next time you talk to him, please give him my respect. That is,
yeah.
And for real, that's I love him already.
Yeah. He's also a great artist.
Good for him. I would hope so. But no, too. So, you're. I don't want to say your creativity, but here you're an illustrator. You've got these cartoons. You're developing this cast of characters like the Blade. What other creative pursuits do you have? And maybe it's only Deleter right now, but I do want to talk a little bit about your new album released today, which again, Loonies, we forgot to mention today is Friday the 13th.
And it's a full fucking moon.
This is ominous. It is truly. It is a full moon. The next time that we're going to have a full moon on Friday the 13th, I think is in like 2879 or something. So Rick, Knol, and Tommy on the block. We are the three aspects happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
But no, what else do you go after? With your inspiration. Obviously, with these illustrations, you're using some old comic covers that you love.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us a little bit about Deleter and other projects that you're working on.
Deleter is the only musical project I do that is my own right now. I've done a lot of other things in the past. I used to be in a band with my younger brother called Kill Sadie back in the 90s that did a lot of stuff.
By the way, Loony listeners, Knol Tate has his own Wikipedia page. He's that cool.
Damn.
That's embarrassing. It's probably not right either. But...
Well, it says something about Kill Sadie. It says something about your brother and his band.
Mm-hmm.
It says something about Deleter.
Okay, well, at least those
Loony,
things are all
right.
right.
Not that cool. Knol isn't that cool.
No. But
just Tommy and Rick think he's cool.
I was in that band, and then I was in another band called The Hidden Chord after that, and another band called A Skeleton that I did for a long time. That was just me, early days of Pro Tools, which you're getting to know. Kind of the same version, Pro Tools free, when that first came out, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. I started making music kind of the way hip-hop artists used to, with sampling and stuff like that. But, of course, it was digitally now, so you could do almost anything. Because the way they used to do it, just be on old sampler machines and have to push buttons. Yeah, but then I could just load in a CD, grab a beat from like a Spoon song or something, and then drop the other stuff, and then play weird like Casio keyboards over it. So did that for a while, and it toured a bunch. That kind of became sort of a band or whatever, and then I got bored with that and started doing Deleter, because I kind of always have to be a band, and I always have to kind of flip the script and change what I'm doing, like if I'm doing kind of a poppier, it's always weird, whatever I do, but if it's kind of a poppier thing, and then I was like, I want to do something where I could just yowl. And so started that band, because I think I was just really pissy at the time. I think we started Deleter like 6 years ago or something, 7 years ago, I don't know. And, just use it as an outlet kind of for abstract anger and things like that. And then once I kind of got all that anger out, I was sort of looking for something to write about. And I'd been back into, because it's kind of this case with all of us. It's like you're in comics and then you're out of comics for a while, and then you get something to bring you back in. And I just started getting back into comics, and it was like, I think I want to just write sort of tone poems about the books I really like, about comic books I really like and stuff. Kind of using somebody else's filtering somebody else's creativity through my own, and see what happens. And then the last record we did was called Levitate the Pentagon, which is kind of a mashup of ideas that a lot of Alan Moore ideas with Watchmen and V for Vendetta, mixed in with like some of the sort of Jim Starlin-ish Marvel kind of stuff, the 70s Jim Starlin stuff. The kind of when Marvel Cosmic just got really wacky and weird. And then put through sort of a filter of, because it was the what was it, 50th anniversary of the 68 Democratic Convention protests in Chicago, and with the movement that was called the Yippies. They were kind of I'm sure Tommy and Rick probably both, but they were sort of like a anti-war protest group, kind of a group of anarchists that instead of doing like what the Weathermen did and blowing up buildings, they would put on weird performance art things and would sort of organize sort of like street theater and like anarchist street theater and just do weird shit. And one time they went during the protests about the Vietnam War in '68, they went and got like 300 people and held hands and surrounded the Pentagon, which is, the symbol of American military might. And then they all started chanting and casting spells, and then we're going to levitate the Pentagon off the ground. And it was a joke, obviously, but the authorities arrested them for trying to levitate the Pentagon. It was really funny. So I thought it just fit perfectly into sort of the ideas that like Watchmen and that kind of stuff sort of had, and it was sort of a real life freaky black magic thing that happened, and that just kind of spanned out to like other things. And then my next obsession obviously was Moon Knight, so I was like, the band has no say, but I was like, I want to write 6 songs based on my personal favorite run of Moon Knight, which was more, Warren Ellis and Declan Shelby's run, which is one of the most punk rock comics or set of comics ever done, and I was like, this fits perfectly with it. Every issue is quick and fast and violent and weird.
Yeah.
And it's
99% action and 99% movement in those first 5 or 6 issues.
Yeah, and to me, it reads like what my idea of Deleter was in the first place. It was just like fast and action and weird and abstract at the same time. Every one of those issues just is over, and it always ends in a really weird way. You're like, what just happened? That was strange. I mean, down to the fact that Declan Shelby even put punk rock Easter eggs in the record covers and stuff. It's just like, this is perfect. So that's why we did
listeners, it. Listeners, too, today, Friday the 13th, full moon, is also the release date on just about every streaming service for Deleter's new album. Is that correct?
Actually, I think the rest of the streaming services comes out next week.
Oh, next week. Okay.
Yeah, it's Bandcamp only right now, and that's
okay. So just on Bandcamp.
We usually do that because at least for a weekend, because that money actually goes directly to us instead of the pennies you see through iTunes or Spotify or whatever.
Yeah. So again, Knol, if listeners do want to contribute and purchase their copy of Deleter's The Othervoid. Is that just bandcamp.com/Deleter?
Yeah. Or Deleter.bandcamp.com.
Okay. So Deleter.bandcamp.com, and we'll make sure that we throw that again at the end of our episode here as well. But again, Deleter has their new album out on Bandcamp, and then in the future on streaming services, but The Othervoid, and I think to Levitate the Pentagon, Knol, that was really Deleter's introduction of itself to ITK. I think that when you started getting involved with Into the Night, you kind of threw out there, hey, I think actually Ray put out a post once like, hey, is there anybody that's a graphic designer or a music producer or something like that? And Knol piped up and said, yeah, I've got a band. Here's the album. Check it out. And Knol has most generously, and all of Deleter most generously, essentially donated clips of their tracks from Levitate the Pentagon.
Not essentially, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, to support the Into the Night podcast. And Knol, I know just as a fan of the podcast, but also just as somebody that supports it in a creative way from time to time. And as a member of the Loony community, we really appreciate that. I was talking to my wife tonight about that, and she's listened to an episode here and there, but just that opening and the samples that are used for the credits, it really makes the ITK podcast something special. So thank you to you, and thank you to Deleter too for making it special for me, and again, something special to share with my kids. Like Ray and Connor, they do a lot, but your contribution, I think, is something that should be highlighted as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Rick, what are you good for?
Shit talking.
Rick's a fighter, man. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, guys, we have been cruising for about almost 90 minutes here. We've got a number of topics to talk about that I'm sure we could talk about in the future too. But is there anything pressing that anybody wants to touch on before we leave? I don't want to leave Phil and Chad and everybody else in the dust.
We've already left those motherfuckers in the dust.
As Knol says on Roundtable Rendezvous, we talk about what we want, right?
We do what we please, man.
That's the truth.
No, I mean there's a lot more we can talk about, but we'll do a round 2 of round 2 at some point. This is fun.
Oh yeah,
because I want to talk a lot more shit, just like I know Rick does.
Oh, you have no idea.
We're gonna start calling out dudes on Twitter and shit.
Oh yeah.
Well, Loony listeners, we appreciate your time and thank you for checking in with Rick Gentusa and Knol Tate and myself, the man on the streets. We are really happy that you're listening to the ITK podcast. It's produced by our High Priest of Khonshu, Ray, and Khonshu. Check us out on the Facebook group Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast and fan base. You can also reach ITK on Twitter at ITK Moon Knight and on Instagram at ITK Moon Knight. And there's a YouTube presence. And as Ray always says, if you would like to try to catch this podcast on another service, we are on all good podcast catchers. Look forward to upcoming episodes. If this comes out after tomorrow's recording, episode 113, we will be reviewing, Ray and Connor and Chad will be reviewing the Moon Knight Annual that came out on September 11th, Wednesday, September 11th. And that a lot of big news for Moon Knight in the future with this Moon Knight team up with Conan and several other characters like Solomon Kane and Conan Serpent War. And of course, we have the Disney Plus announcement and that show coming out. So we hear that CB Cebulski, the editor-in-chief of Marvel, says that 2020 is going to be the year of Moon Knight and the Black Knight. So we hope you stick with us. And please join us on Facebook for discussion. But Knol and Rick, it was great catching up with you. And I really do hope that we can do this again. And especially with the other guys too, or any Loonies, of course. But it was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Absolutely. May Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.